Hey guys, welcome to the Magfed Ranch Paintball channel, and today I'm going to be discussing why the 468 from MCS is not Magfed worthy. But before I get into it guys, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, share, and comment. Alright guys, let's get into it. So guys, I'm not going to go into this video, kind of my backstory of my experience with the 468, but I've had a long, let's just say a long journey with the 468. This is my original 468 guys, from back in the day. As you guys can see, it's a fairly low serial number. The marker on the side shows that it was made by RAP4. That was what MCS was previously named as. I think they went through a name change during my time of play, guys. And so, like I said, I want to say all these things just because this is obviously an older generation of 468. So I don't know if the newer generation of 468 has made any changes, improvements, or design differences. I've looked into in terms of the website and online. I don't see I don't see any noticeable differences with the marker, but just wanted to obviously make that obviously that preference, okay, right, that clarification for you guys. Okay, so let's get into why this marker is not Magfed worthy. And to begin guys, what I need to do as always is set the criteria. And as you guys know, on this channel I'm promoting Magfed with first strike rounds. Okay guys, that's the gameplay I'm promoting. That's the freaking future that I want to see us, pushing towards, right? I want to see that gameplay. I want to see the rules. I want to see fields. I want to see the community all kind of push towards that style of gameplay, and hopefully that will be what we'll obviously get to. Okay, guys. Okay, just so you guys know that's what I'm judging this marker on, guys. Very similar to kind of what I judged the TIPX pistol on a video I shot recently about that marker, guys. So same criteria. Okay. So the things I'm going to go over on why the 468 is not Magfed worthy first, guys, is going to be the metrics are going to be reliability. Okay. The second is going to be performance. And then the third is just going to be kind of quality of build. Okay, guys? Of course, I'm going to touch on a little bit of price and kind of the maintenance features while I go over it. But guys, when it comes to whether it can actually do that task, that criteria or not, that's the key, why I say it's not Magfed worthy. Okay, guys? So let's first talk about reliability. And as anything in Magfed, guys, you got to start with the magazines. Okay, it doesn't matter what marker, it could be a TIPX, this marker, T15, it doesn't matter. EMF, M17, we got to start with the magazines. And the D-Mags, that is the magazine, even currently, obviously I looked at MCS's website recently, even to now, currently, they recommend the D-Mag if you're going to be shooting first strikes. But I will tell you guys, these mags are terrible for first strike rounds. Okay, the reason for that, guys, is there's just so many edges that can get caught on. The cutout, whether you have the 20 round or the 14 round magazine, the cutout, the shape for the FS round is not big enough, and it's not smooth enough, it's not beveled enough. There's just too many lips, edges, imperfection in the molded injection for the first strike round edges. As you guys are aware, I've showcased the edges on the first strike rounds. It's going to catch on this magazine and either cause it to jam or cause it to flip. Okay, now this magazine, I get it, they designed it to be possible or to be used with first strikes. But honestly, this was just a very affordable magazine that was designed to be, in essence, disposable. Like I said, guys, I was around during the time of the development of this magazine, and even their newer Helix magazines. I was actually around when, you know, that prototype of the Helix magazines first came out. And the problem with these magazines, guys, is it was meant to be an affordable alternative to like the M17 magazines of the day, the T15 magazines of the day, right? $30 per magazine. It was meant to be something that if you lost it on the field, or if it got damaged, or, you know, for whatever reason, you know, you were, you know, freaking playing and somehow it got, you know, crushed or lost, you wouldn't be feeling so bad losing, you know, a $10 magazine. They're more expensive now, of course, but, you know, you wouldn't feel so bad losing a magazine that was a third of the price of all the other magazines out there at the time, okay, guys? But they work okay with regular paintball, but they do not work with First Strike, guys. 100%. You know, they'll work from time to time. There's a video out there, an old school video of me, guys. I don't know, some of you guys, I've mentioned that you guys recognize me, but there's an old video out there, I believe it's under OD Washington State, where my cousin and I are testing the 468, you know, with the D-Mags. And in testing, they worked okay, you know, from just like, you know, on the range testing. But out on the field, you know, when you're going to be harder with the marker, you're going to be bumping it around, there's more potential for the First Strike to catch the magazines. These things were just horrendously unreliable. There was also another thing. You had to modify the springs. You had to change the springs out because obviously, as you guys are aware, most Magfed marker magazines, when you load standard round ball into the magazine, and if the spring pressure is really tight, stiff, you know, like, and you leave the balls just sitting in the magazine underneath that spring pressure, it's going to obviously squish and, you know, oval the paintball rounds, right? Now, you don't have that problem with FS because the shells are a little bit harder, but unfortunately, you will need a stiffer spring to ensure that, you know, it actually gets pushed up forcibly enough to load into the chamber, okay, guys? And so, you know, you had to modify the magazines. The standard springs in the magazines won't work with First Strikes, but even after that, they still weren't really reliable, okay, guys? And, you know, going to the Helix mag, you know, the Helix mag is not going to be any better when it comes to First Strike. Actually, you know, MCS, they don't even recommend using the Helix mag for round ball. For First Strike. And if you look at the opening of the Helix magazine, it's not even really, you know, big enough. It's kind of undersized. It was definitely meant for, unfortunately, just round paintball, guys. So the magazine design, starting out with that, not reliable at all, guys. I'm not saying it was 100% unreliable, but let's be honest, even 10-20%, and I'm not saying that it was even that good, but even 10-20% of, you know, 1 out of every 10 times that you fire and it has a jam or a freaking failure, that's not good, guys. That's not good in any marker, in any freaking platform, okay? And the other thing too, next, guys, besides the magazine, was all the little different features in the magwell that the 468 was available. Like I said, guys, I'm not going to go over my history with MCS and obviously the 468. I'll go over that in another video, but you know, when they added the lock bolt system to the marker, and then of course when they add the anti-drop device, the anti-ball drop device, it just overcomplicated the magwell. There's just more things in there now. You know, the anti-ball drop has like these two, pretty much kind of like doors. You know, so in essence, it's like two plates, and one plate is sliding on the other plate. And so in essence, when it gets pushed up correctly, the two plates line up. Okay, so the opening on the anti-ball drop device lines up. But very similar to the Scony or the Kill House cutout on the TIPX breach that I did a review for you guys recently, that cutout is just not big enough. It's not beveled enough. You know, they didn't take into account the sharp edges of the First Strike round. And the First Strike round gets caught in there or flipped in there quite frequently. Now, a cool feature of it, of course, was it prevented the the rounds from dropping out when you guys went to go do like a tactical reload or like an administrative reload, and there were still rounds in your magazine. It prevented those 1 or 2 rounds that were in the mag well from dropping out. So I get it. It made it kind of a cool realistic feature, but it added, unfortunately, this negative side effect of not being very first strike friendly. And then, of course, the lock bolt, guys, once again, another great idea and concept. It's literally an arm that is spring pressured, and it blocks the bolt from coming forward if there's not a round inside the chamber. But the problem with that is, once again, it's just another thing to either go wrong, cause the first strike round not to obviously load into the chamber, causes it to sit improperly, so it's not feeding straight up and down. There was numerous times that we played that this because you can see the cutout here, it would get dirt, or let's say for some reason you would still get a break, it would get gummed up, and it was just a pain in the butt to clean out, take apart. Very little small components in there, very little small spring, a little small lever arm. I've taken it apart several times to clean out and just to get used to the system, guys. But like I said, cool idea in concept, cool feature in concept, but I think with markers and I think with equipment in general, unless, like I said, we really spend the time and the money to develop it and research correctly, I think the concept of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is a way better concept when it comes to our markers, okay? But I definitely would like to see more development, but like I said, I just don't think these items, these add-on features had enough development, especially with first strike rounds, to make it reliable. So that just added an extra layer of, trap doors, things to catch on guys that made it very, very unreliable with first strikes. With round ball, it worked okay. This actually, this marker actually just ended up kind of being my backup for round ball at different events or at, different games when we went to go play, just in case, I needed a backup marker or one of my teammates needed one. But I'll be honest with you guys, we really never even turned back to it. Like I said, guys, that'll be another video. Let's continue. So the reliability with first strike was horrendous, guys, and so I wouldn't recommend this marker for that reason. Now, let's go into the performance, okay, guys? So now, performance-wise, of course, it's an A5 thread barrel, so you can pretty much replace any barrel. So you can put a first strike barrel on it. We actually tried it one point, in that video that we shot. We had used the Lapco barrel, and it worked totally fine. It's just threads in and out, so very simple, very similar to like the M17 type of markers, guys. So that's a cool thing about it. And with the rifle barrels, it definitely got more accurate. You can, like I said, go check out that video. But the groups, side to side, windage groups were actually not too bad. But this is kind of where the performance of the marker is lacking, is that it's not consistent. So the way to adjust the velocity on the 468, it has this spring-loaded kind of rear adapter here, and this spring pressure is what causes the velocity to increase or decrease. And so by twisting this rod right here, as you can see on this rear back plate, it pushes the spring. In essence, it puts more tension on the spring or less tension on the spring, depending on if you screw the rod in or out. Okay, guys? And like I said, once again, kind of cool idea. It's just a mechanical velocity adjustment, right? And of course, you can change the springs too, guys. I remember they had some different springs that you can change to different velocities. But one thing, real quick, not very user-friendly. As you guys can see, to kind of do that just kind of out on the field, not very user-friendly. right? Not only every time you had to take your buttstock on and off to take that piece off to make the adjustment. You go to chrono it, right? And then of course, if it's not the right velocity, then you're gonna have to take it off again, you know, adjust the thing in and out. Whereas, you know, the M17 is literally just a screw adjustment on the bottom. You don't gotta take anything out, you just need an Allen key. Same thing with the T15, right? It's just a little Allen key on the side of the receiver. You know, like I said, maybe a good thought in design concept, but in application, not very user friendly and not very easy to adjust. The other thing too is it wasn't consistent, guys. In that video, you guys can see, you know, my cousin and I are shooting the marker, and you can see like a plus or minus 20 feet per second, sometimes even more. And if you look at our groups at the very end of the testing, like I was telling you, the windage groups wasn't too bad. It was like, you know, 6 to 7 inches windage, but up and down, it was a lot. And now I believe it was like at 50 yards. And so, of course, that was the cause. It was, you know, one time it would shoot at 220 feet per second. And then another time it would shoot at 250 feet per second. You know, and then another one it'd be 225. So just this fluctuation in feet per second caused it to shoot either high or low. And that really hurts your groups, you guys. So not a very consistent marker. So not performance-wise very well. Oh, before I put this back on, the other thing too was because this thing was under a lot of spring tension and spring pressure, we noticed that after, you know, several hundred, you know, thousands rounds of firing on the marker, the slot where they cut out for this back plate to slide into, it would start bending and then even potentially cracking. And so kind of a weak point on the 468, just to let you guys know, another reliability concern that could cause issues. Okay, I'm gonna go into the receiver real quick. The cool thing about this receiver, as I mentioned on another video, it does break down very similar to a T15. So it has 2 pins that you can literally separate the receivers, but the difference and, you know, the con of this setup versus the T15 is that the T15, the upper and lower receivers, there's nothing joining them together. Yes, there's a little O-ring in the middle of the lower receiver, just like on the T15, that seals the air between the 2 receivers, but unlike the T15, this one is literally glued on. And I know there's been a lot of other people that's reviewed the 468, and they lose this O-ring quite frequently. I mean, even our team, we had hundreds of these O-rings in our field kit, just so that way, you know, we had an extra one just in case, and, you know, it wouldn't disable a marker if we went to go play and we accidentally lost it, right? Or it came out. As you can see, even mine here, I glued it pretty permanently, but I mean, these will need to be replaced from time to time. And then the other problem too is that there's this little small metal pin. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's literally just a little small pin that sits into what is, in essence, kind of the bolt for the lower receiver. This is kind of where I believe, obviously, you know, this is where the air chamber gets charged up. And then that top pin, the other top of the pin, obviously lines up with the bolt in the upper receiver, guys. And you guys, you know, as you guys can imagine, this is something that could be very easily lost out on the field. So we had a bunch of these as well too in our field kit, so that way it wouldn't put our markers out of commission. But even with these things in place, this was the other problem. Like the receiver slot here for the spring, these would bend after several hundred thousands of rounds, you know? Like I said, we had a lot of rounds through our markers, guys. We shot it a lot. We practiced with them a lot, and we saw the failures, but we're not talking about, you know, 15, 20,000 rounds. We're talking like maybe 1,000 rounds, right? Hundreds of rounds before we started seeing these failures, guys, right? So obviously not nothing, but at the same time, not like a lot of rounds before these things started failing. So that definitely added to the unreliability of the marker. I also wanted to show you guys something real quick. I mean, if you look at the cutout in the chamber there, once again, you guys would notice a very similarity to the Scony or the Killhouse Joy cutout. And it's just not enough, guys. It's not beveled. It's just too straight. It's just too perfect for, you know, the first strike round. It has to fit in there perfectly for it to load. Otherwise, it's going to catch or it's going to flip. So that added to another layer of why the first strike round would not load reliable into the 468. Okay, guys? So yeah, I mean, efficiency wasn't good. Well, you know, air efficiency wasn't too bad. It wasn't M17 bad, but it wasn't T15 good, right? And I'm sure it's not, you know, EMF 100 good. But the problem was the consistency. You know, the consistency of just that FPS fluctuation. If the marker was actually able to reliably shoot first strike, it still wasn't as accurate as it could be because it was, you know, always changing its feet per second. Okay? All right, so yeah, I would say the performance was so-so. You know, there's definitely better markers out there for this price, guys. I mean, the last time I checked the price of this marker, it was still around $600 to $700 for just a base marker. You know, that's not with rifle barrels. That's not with modified T15 mags that, you know, you'll need to change the springs. Like I said, it still doesn't really work with first strike rounds. So, okay. Now let's go to build quality, guys. Like I said, you know, it's a fairly durable marker. I know they shot all these videos of them throwing it around, you know, driving over it, burying it in sand. I mean, it's made out of aluminum alloy, so it's a metal that's going to take all that abuse. But where I will say that, you know, it doesn't really score super high marks with me, guys, is the manufacturing process. It's not as clean, it's not as fit as, you know, as well as the T15 or the M17. I'll be honest with you guys, you know. The marker in terms of, like, you know, having to, you know, just putting it together, you know, the lines don't line up as 100%. For example, another thing, the safety selector switch here, it's not an AR-15 style, as you guys will see here. It's literally just, you know, it has the look, but then it doesn't have the positions as the AR-15 does. I know their PTR marker does, but just your standard 468 doesn't. This marker was actually an earlier generation before the PTR even came out, guys, so it wasn't even available at the time. But even now, if you look on their website, the new ones still don't come with it unless you get the PTR. And then the other thing too is it's very gritty. Okay, guys, like the selecting is not like positive. It's not like you can know which one is safe, which one is fire. It's just very gritty, and there's like multiple positions on that selector switch. Okay. And then what else? Besides kind of like I was telling you, some of the failures that can happen with, like, you know, the rear receiver, the pin inside of the marker. We had issues with just like sometimes screws not, like, you know, because you take apart your gun to disassemble it, to clean it, to service it. And sometimes the screws would not be lined up properly. Sometimes it, you know, would cross thread. And guys, I'm an automotive technician. I'm really good with my hands. I obviously know how to take things apart and put things together. And it's just kind of the machining quality where things would line up properly didn't always line up properly, you know. These pins sometimes on the lower receiver would come out, just the little pins that hold the body of the receiver together. But overall, you know, like I said, like, will it take like a durable? Can you throw it around the body? The metal of the marker is going to last. Yes, okay. But I would say the build quality is not as good as some of the other markers, especially when you're paying the same price for the other marker, guys. Guys, that'll be the end of the video. I don't want to get into it too much. You know, I really wanted this marker to work out. This was one of my very first markers that I thought would be capable of first strike. But as you guys can see, and just from, obviously from my experience, hopefully you guys use it for what it's worth. But this marker I could not, like as a team, I was the armorer for my team, and we just could not get this marker to work reliably with first strike. And then, like I said, with all the other problems it had, we just ended up moving on. We actually ended up going to mil-sig markers when the first generation of the mil-sigs came out before the M17. I'm blanking on what that generation of mil-sig was, but and of course going into the M17s, we switched over to mil-sig, and obviously they worked way better than 468 did with the first strike rounds. Now, granted, we didn't know about the air leak and the air efficiency problems when we first got into the mil-sigs. Obviously, through play and through all the testing and shooting that we did, we found out, and of course my own personal testing, we found out all the little quirks about the mil-sig. But guys, the mil-sig, even though with those deficiencies, it's still way more reliable than this marker with first strike rounds. Okay, guys? So that's my review. That's my breakdown of the 468 and why it's not Magfed worthy. If you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. Check you guys next time. Peace.